following. It has been urged and echoed that the power to provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States amounts to an unlimited commission to exercise every power which may be alleged to be necessary for the common defense or general welfare. Had no other enumeration or definition of the powers of the Congress been found in the Constitution than the general expressions just cited, the authors of the objection might have had some color for it. But what color can the objection have when a specification of the objects alluded to by these general terms immediately follows, and is not even separated by a longer pause than a semicolon? Nothing is more natural nor common than first to use a general phrase and then to explain and qualify it by a recital of particulars. But the idea of an enumeration of particulars which neither explain nor qualify the general meaning and can have no other effect than to confound and mislead is an absurdity. Now, others may take a different tack and claim that the welfare state is actually a mixture of individualism and collectivism. But individual rights cannot be half recognized. Either individual rights are recognized in a society or they are not recognized. What frequently happens is that a society based on individualism does not have the courage, integrity, and intelligence to observe its own principle consistently in every practical application. Through cowardice, ignorance, or opportunism, such a society passes laws and accepts regulations which contradict its basic principle and violate the inalienable rights of its citizens. Such a society may appear to be working, but it is actually disintegrating. Disintegration takes time. Unless the violations are corrected, such a society eventually collapses into full-blown collectivism. A famous quote puts it another way. A democracy is always temporary in nature. It simply cannot exist as a permanent form of government. A democracy will continue to exist up until the time that voters discover that they can vote themselves generous gifts from the public treasury. From that moment on, the majority always votes for the candidates who promise the most benefits from the public treasury, with the result that every democracy will eventually collapse due to loose fiscal policy, which is always followed by a dictatorship. Finally, some will argue that inalienable rights also include the rights to food, clothing, housing, health care, and education, a job, a secure retirement, and so on. But a single question added to each of these would make the issue clear. At whose expense? Those alleged rights do not occur naturally. In fact, they are goods and services produced by human effort. So, who is to provide them? Let's talk about what rights really are. Rights is not just a political term. It is also a moral term. It tells us that a certain course of behavior is right and proper, that it must be respected by others and not be interfered with, and that anyone who violates a person's rights is wrong, immoral, and evil. Our only rights are the rights to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness, and that's it. We are not born with a right to free food, or free clothing, or free medical care, or free services or goods of whatever kind you can imagine. Why only those specific rights? Because all legitimate rights have one thing in common. They are rights to action, not to goods and services from other people. Legitimate rights impose no obligations on other people, except for the obligation to leave you alone. This system guarantees you the opportunity to work for what you want, not to receive it for nothing from somebody else. You have a right to work, not to rob others of the fruits of their labor, not to turn others into virtual slaves laboring to fulfill your wants and needs. The right to life does not mean that your neighbors have to feed you and clothe you and house you. It means that you have the right to earn your food, clothing, and housing for yourself, and that no one is allowed to forcibly stop your efforts to obtain them, or to take them from you when you finally get them. In other words, you have the right to act, to keep the fruits of your labor, and to do with them what you wish. But you have no right to the goods, services, and talents of others, except on terms to which they voluntarily agree. The right to the pursuit of happiness is precisely that, the right to the pursuit, to a certain type of action and its result, not to any guarantee that other people will make you happy, or even try to do so. If your desire for something imposes a duty on other people to satisfy you, then their right to liberty is violated, and the right to pursue their happiness is hindered. Your right to happiness at their expense means that they become, in effect, your slaves. Nowadays, we watch the intellectuals and the politicians abandoning the moral principles upon which this nation was founded. We are witnessing the annihilation of the concept of rights. The original American idea is being ignored as if it had never existed. The rule now is that for politicians to violate our rights, while arguing for a long list of alleged rights never dreamed of in the nation's founding documents. Rights which require no earning, no effort, no action at all on the part of the recipient. You are entitled to something the intellectuals and the politicians say simply because it exists and you want it. You are entitled to have it provided for you by the federal government, which in turn entitles the federal government to set up a welfare state. But from where does the federal government get what you want? What must the federal government do to private citizens, to their individual rights, to their real rights, in order to carry out the promise of showering free goods and services on the people? The newly invented rights wipe out real rights and turn the people who actually create the goods and services into servants of the state. It's the same as if the federal government were to proclaim a universal right to a car, or a computer, or a cell phone. Not that you are free to earn these things by your own effort, but that you have some moral claim to be given these things, free of charge, with no action on your part, simply as handouts from a benevolent welfare state. Socialism is clearly evident in this process. The welfare state is not hardcore socialism per se, because it does not necessarily require the total elimination of private ownership of the means of production and distribution. But enormous bureaucracies have been created to tax, subsidize, and regulate businesses, and the federal government owns 34% of our nation's total land area. Furthermore, 2/3 of the federal budget is devoted to programs that are engaged in wealth redistribution. In conclusion, it would not be inaccurate to claim that the welfare state is socialism in disguise. In any case, we can be absolutely certain of this: the welfare state is not Americanism in disguise. Thank you.